Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, I want to do a compare and contrast of the various scouting units in AoE2. We'll evaluate their scouting abilities, combat, and talk about the ways that the new Champi have broken some of the established rules around Dark Age scouts, giving us the Age of Champi phase we're living in, which I expect will probably define most players' future memories of the latest DLC release. Now, the point of this isn't just to complain about the Dark Age Champi rush, especially given there are rumors of nerfs coming to it at some point relatively soon. Instead, this is to put the unit in the context of the other 3 scouts in the game, and hopefully learn a bit more about those units along the way. First and foremost, the primary role of a scouting unit is of course to scout and reveal the map. The Scout Cavalry and Camel Scout for Gajars have 1 tile shorter line of sight than the unmounted Champi and Eagle, which sounds a bit wrong at first, as being mounted should in theory give you more vision, especially when we know AoE2 animals can scout on their own. But obviously this is just to balance the difference in movement speed. When standing still, the dismounted units have roughly 60% more tiles revealed, though I actually think that's a little misleading when it comes to scouting ability. It's the line of sight diameter and speed of the units that determines how quickly they reveal tiles, and if you do the math, the Champi and Eagle Scout only reveal the map about 12% faster than the Cavalry and Grajar's Camel Scouts. That seems like a fair trade-off, as the mounted units can do a loop around the town center faster, for example, or go forward to reach an opponent's base a few seconds sooner. So the Eagle and now Champi revealing a few extra tiles seems like reasonable compensation. It means there isn't really a clear best scouting unit. Well, except the Mongols, who demolished the competition at 15.6 tiles per second, or the less commonly seen new record holder with Champi or Eagle civs having an Armenian ally at 16.5. That's the one you want if you're going for the Marco Polo achievement. Of course, Champi can then build Outposts, which is an extra point in their favor, though I'd say it's debatable if that's really a scouting advantage in the traditional sense. Building the Outpost takes 15 seconds, missing out on 180 tiles you could have seen in that time, on top of course, the resource cost. Outposts also have surprisingly limited line of sight in Dark Age, increasing as you age up. So while there can be an advantage to getting some more permanent sight on your opponent's base or around the map, Outposts tend to come up a bit later than the exploring phase of the game we're talking about. Still, it's something Champi can do and the others can't, so maybe we can say they're the best scouters overall. Next though, let's talk about combat ability, starting in the Dark Age. While their speed and line of sight fell into 2 distinct groups, notice the combat stats here are all over the place, ranging from 35 to 70 HP, and as low as 2 up to 4 attack. The simplest way to sort this all out is to have them fight each other, and when you do that, it's pretty clear the Eagle Scout is the best in combat as it defeats all the others, followed by the Camel Scout, which only loses to Eagles, ever so slightly ahead of the Scout Cavalry and Champi, which are basically on the same level, both requiring 12 hits to defeat the other. You might think the Camel Scout or Eagle have some bonus damage helping against Cavalry, but that actually doesn't kick in until later, with Camel Scouts automatically gaining bonus damage against Cavalry the moment you reach Feudal Age, pumped up a little extra by a Grajar Civ bonus. The Eagle Scout doesn't gain its +2 against Cavalry until the moment they hit Castle Age, as one of those hidden things even players with hundreds of hours of gameplay might not know. In fact, the only bonus damage going on in Dark Age is the Champi having +1 against Eagles, and they still lose against Eagles anyway. Arguably, the more important matchup to focus on though is against Villagers, where all 4 defeat a Villager without Loom, having roughly half their strength left over. This is why you generally want to grab Loom before clicking up to Feudal on open maps, or while with pairs before that point, as a single scout of any type is a potential danger if a Villager gets caught out alone. After Loom, only the Dark Age Eagle Scout can still take on a Villager, albeit the Champi makes it fairly close. Worth noting in Dark Age as well is that because of Camel Scout's low Pierce Armor and bonus damage, as well as the Champi Scout's low HP, those 2 are actually the worst against town center fire, with Eagles being the best at tanking arrows, and Scout Cavalry have the best combo of arrow resistance and speed. Not that it'll save them if you just waypoint explore them into a town center. That's all Dark Age though, and now let's jump ahead to Feudal, where a few automatic upgrades kick in. To go back to scouting, all of their line of sight start to diverge, with a speed boost coming in for Cavalry and Camels as well. The end result is that Scout Cavalry become the best scouters, followed by Eagles, then Champi, and then Camels. Obviously, by Feudal Age, you're probably not scouting to the same degree, but it is worth noting. Some of their combat stats also go through a shakeup, with Cavalry and Camels gaining some extra attack, plus the Camel unlocks its bonus damage against Cavalry. It is slower than Scout Cavalry at this point, but if they catch them, the Camel suddenly has a big advantage. A couple of the Champi civilizations also have passive bonuses kick in the instant you hit Feudal Age, with Mapuche gaining 5 HP and Muisca gaining 1 melee armor, which notably impacts some matchups. Repeating the round-robin test in early Feudal Age, Camel Scouts actually become the best in combat, followed by Scout Cavalry, then followed by Eagles, who had been the best in Dark Age, with then Champi still bringing up the rear. Though technically, we Scout with their +1 armor can narrowly defeat Eagles. All of these can also now comfortably defeat a loomed villager in combat, except for 2P and Inca Champi warriors, who need to be upgraded to Champi runners to do that, whereas remember only Eagles were able to do this in Dark Age. It is a lot to process, but if we think about the ebb and flow of each unit's individual journey, the Scout Cavalry goes from middle of the road at scouting in Dark Age to the best in Feudal Age. Combat-wise, they also go from among the worst and unable to beat a loomed villager to then beating all other scouts one-on-one aside from camels thanks to an instant +2 attack in Feudal Age, so they really benefit a lot from reaching Feudal, even before talking about bloodlines, etc. Camel Scouts then start with the same generic scouting ability, but go the other direction and become the worst at scouting in Feudal, while in terms of combat are consistently at or near the top of the hierarchy in both Dark and Feudal Age. The most significant blemish is just they can't beat a loomed villager one-on-one until Feudal. Eagles and Champi then take a step back on a relative basis between Dark and Feudal Age, going from revealing more tiles than the Scout Cavalry to fewer, and especially Eagles go from beating everything else including loomed villagers to, in combat, being a bit below average. Champi for their part start combat-wise kinda mid, and just drop from there, especially the more generic ones for 2P and Inca. Admittedly, your takeaway here could be that the Champi sounds underwhelming, which anyone playing online these last few weeks will tell you is not the reality. So now let's touch on the elephant in the room, and why Champi are considered borderline broken in Dark Age. I'm not going too hard at the devs here, because I'll admit, despite how obvious the results seem now, I did not see this coming when first hearing about the unit. And the problem all comes down to the fact that unlike all the other scouts, Champi are also replacing the militia line, so you can train more of them in Dark Age. That's had massive implications, and especially with 2P's extra resources or Inca's discount, you can easily afford a barracks in the first minute or two of the game and train a second or third Champi scout. All of the math around scouting speed is for one unit, so having 2 for scouting is obviously going to be good. And it's not just that. You can send them forward as well, where all the talk about losing one-on-one to a villager goes out the window since you can have 2 or more of them. Likewise, you can 2v1 your opponent's scout, so losing one-on-one against an Eagle scout isn't really important, and you can then just generally cause problems in your opponent's base, whether that's playing footsie with their lumberjacks, stealing herdables, or even a boar, where their slower speed actually makes it easier to stay within the boar's line of sight. That's certainly not to say other scouts can't do these things too, but Champi civs can do it while still having another scout exploring back home at the same time, or doing 2 or more of these at once, so it's really on a level that other civs can't match. There's then the harder to quantify aspect of forcing your opponents to make walls around their resources or prevent them from milling chickens safely, and it's fundamentally different from even the fastest militia rushes, because Champi themselves are fast moving, so you can't chase them down. I don't think the devs intended for a lot of this, though part of me likes the idea of a civ like 2P applying super high pressure early, where you need loom and lots of resource walling, but just hits a little too early and is just too strong. Some changes I've seen previewed are pretty extreme, basically nerfing every aspect of Champi they can, and is probably an overcorrection, though those changes aren't official yet. As we've seen, they're individually not particularly strong in the early game, so targeting the quantity and not the quality of them makes more sense to me. I'm confident they'll figure something out though, and again, I'm not in a position to criticize, as I didn't call any of this ahead of time. Especially after seeing the delicate balance of trade-offs between the different scouts, it's immediately obvious now why having even 2 of them creates problems in hindsight. Either way, that's a quick update and scouting report on the various scouts in AoE2. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.